So the last few weeks, we've been covering the pastimes of the Lord. A few months back during Janmashtami, we spoke about how the Lord advents without much fanfare in a very dark place in Mathura, a jail cell no less. And then the Lord is transferred to Gokul after the Lord himself instructs Vasudeva that this is what he should do. And then the girl child born of Mother Yashoda is brought back to Mathura. And although Kamsa tries to kill this girl child, she slips from his hands, rises up into the sky and tells Kamsa, the cause of your death, that personality has already made an appearance elsewhere. But under the influence of the other Asuras who were reporting into him, who were part of his assembly, Kamsa continues to do his killing. And one such agent that he uses is Putana. Now, before Putana actually comes into Gokul, when Nanda Maharaj has visited Mathura to pay taxes to Kamsa, Vasudeva has urged him to go back to Gokul because he feels that there are going to be many disturbances. And Vasudeva's words were quite prescient because that's what the Gokulvasis experience soon thereafter. And it begins with Putana's entrance. Of course, the Lord himself, through his divine potency, attracts Putana to come to Gokul. And I've heard from other senior Vaishnavas that because she has already killed so many children, the Lord wanted to protect his devotees in Gokul. And therefore, to make sure that no other child in Gokul is harmed, Lord Krishna entices her to come directly to him first. So the Lord begins his killing by killing this ghastly form of an Ashura in the form of a woman's body. And although her intent was to poison the Lord and kill him, still the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, accepts her milk as his mother and gives her liberation in return. So when the Lord kills Putana, he's only 6 days old in terms of material age. And soon thereafter, he is placed under a cart. And at that time, he's 3 months old. And mystically, with just a little kick of his chubby little feet, he collapses Shakatashur. Shakata meaning the cart. And everybody is astonished. How is this that this child seems to be attracting demons, and somehow or the other, there's not a scratch on his body. He's never been harmed. And like this, they are actually praying to Lord Narayana for protecting their child, not knowing that this child is Narayana. So they were praying to the Lord to protect the Lord himself. And during the killing of Putana, they chant all the names of Lord Hari, knowing by chanting the names of Lord Hari and applying tilak on the Lord's body with cow dung. They were reciting the Lord's names to protect him. That's the sweetness of the Gokulvasis there. So after killing Shakatashur, the Lord then encounters one more Ashura sent by Kamsa, this time in the form of Trinavarta. Trinavarta in the form of the whirlwind, where we discovered last time the Lord becomes suddenly very heavy in the lap of Mother Yashoda, causing her to put him down. And as heavy as he had become for his own mother, he becomes as light as a feather when Trinavarta arrives, so that Trinavarta can carry him up easily up into the air. And children have a very tight grip. So when the Lord wrapped his arms around Trinavarta's neck, he simply chokes him to death. So Putana fell from the sky. And if you read the Bhagavatam, it says her body was humongous, 12 kilometers in length. 12 kilometers. So Trinavarta was also a massive Ashura, but when he falls on a slab of stone, and Krishna is very safely playing on his chest, just as he was playing on the chest of Putana. And at the end of that particular chapter, which is chapter 7, when Mother Yashoda is feeding the Lord being full, momentarily yawns. And when he yawns, Mother Yashoda sees the entire universe within his mouth. And out of confusion and anxiety, she's wondering, is this some demon with a mystic power that is disturbing my mind? She just closes her eyes. Later on, in chapter 8, we discover how the gopis come to Mother Yashoda one by one with a litany of complaints. Your boy is so naughty, you need to do something about him. So Krishna, as soon as he begins to walk, both Krishna and Balaram, then of course, Garga Muni comes to do the naming ceremony for Krishna and Balaram and also draw the horoscopes of both the children of Vasudeva. So when the gopis complain to Mother Yashoda, your child is out of control, you need to do something. He's letting loose the calves. When he knows that we need to milk the cows, he's coming in the middle of the night, stealing the butter. If he's not happy with the taste, he makes a mess. If he doesn't find the butter, he gets even more angry and urinates in the most cleanest of places, which is our puja room. And if he can't find the butter, he pinches our little babies until they start crying, and then he disappears from the crime scene. So they complain to Mother Yashoda, your child is a thief. Now, when Lord Krishna is accused of being a thief by one of the cowherd men, Krishna just replies back to that cowherd man saying, I am not a thief, you are a thief. So in the process, the gopis have complained to Mother Yashoda, but still she does not chastise Krishna. She just very bashfully smiles at the gopis who are complaining to her. And Krishna is trying to hide behind her as the gopis are complaining. But when she turns around to look at her little child's face, his eyes are filled with fear. And seeing his beautiful face, Mother Yashoda forgets all of the complaints that the gopis have made against her Nandalal. And some acharyas say Krishna was actually very perplexed. He is doing everything within his power to get chastised by his mother. But somehow or the other, Mother Yashoda is always showering her love on him. What is it that he needs to do that he can experience her parental chastisement? Up until now, everything that he's done, Mother Yashoda has been very protective about the Lord. But nonetheless, Krishna is thinking, what is it that I have to do that I will get scolded by my mother? Because he wanted to experience that rasa of being a child, although he's the Supreme Lord. But as a child, he wanted to experience the mother's chastisement. And therefore, he takes it up a step further this time. So Mother Yashoda excuses him, and he's not chastised. So he gets an opportunity to show his mother that he can be incorrigible. Incorrigible means someone who doesn't learn, who does the same thing again and again, who's just too naughty and too mischievous. So it is the day of Diwali. And a pastime is about to unfold that the greatest of acharyas have commented about this specific pastime, which is what we're going to get into today. So we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 9, which is titled, Mother Yashoda Binds Krishna. We will also go through Chapter 10 and 11 briefly before we conclude our session today. So in this particular pastime, where the mother binds her son because he has gone one step too far, Lord Krishna has learned how to steal in other people's houses. This time, he's going to steal in his own house, in his parents' house. Actually, he did begin his stealing in his own house, but that's a separate pastime that we will not get into today. So it's the day of Diwali, and Sri Shukadev Goswami, who's narrating these pastimes to Parikshit Maharaj, begins chapter 9 as follows. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ekada Griha Dashishu Yashoda Gehini Karmantara Niyuktasu Nimamanta Swayam Dhadi Yani Yani Ha Gitani Tadbala Charitani Cha Dhadi Nirmantane Kale Smaranti Tanya Gayata. So these are two shlokas. The first two shlokas of Canto 10, Chapter 9. And Srila Prabhupada translates these two shlokas as follows. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued. One day, when Mother Yashoda saw that all the maidservants were engaged in other household affairs, she personally began to churn the yogurt. While churning, she remembered the childhood activities of Krishna. And in her own way, she composed songs and enjoyed singing to herself about all those activities. So if you read the purport written by Srila Prabhupada for this particular two shlokas, Prabhupada says, in our culture, one of the best ways to remember something is to compose it in the form of a song and then sing it repeatedly until you can remember it. You see, so far, the other gopis have come and complained to Mother Yashoda, but she herself has not witnessed any of these pastimes, especially the pastimes of the Lord stealing from other householders. So now that they have narrated one by one all of the naughty things that Krishna has been doing, she composes all of those things because she is astounded that her child could do such sweet little pastimes. She never witnessed it. But she composes this into songs so that she can imprint the memories of the Lord performing these pastimes in her heart. And therefore, Prabhupada writes that while churning the butter, Mother Yashoda was singing about the childhood activities of Krishna. It was formerly a custom that if one wanted to remember something constantly, he would transform it into poetry or have this done by a professional poet. It appears that Mother Yashoda did not want to forget Krishna's activities at any time. Therefore, she poeticized all of Krishna's childhood activities, such as the killing of Putana, Aghasura, Shakatasura, Trinavarta. And while churning the butter, she sang about these activities in poetical form. And then Prabhupada gives us an instruction in 2 sentences. Actually, in 3 sentences. Srila Prabhupada says, this should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. This incident shows how Krishna conscious Mother Yashoda was. To stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons. So Prabhupada is saying, we should follow in the footsteps of Mother Yashoda. What was she doing as she was performing her householder responsibilities? She was glorifying the Lord. She was singing about the childhood pastimes of the Lord. Of course, she did not know that this was the Supreme Lord. But Prabhupada says, to stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons. In the next shloka, which is shloka 3, there is a description that Shukadev Goswami gives of how Mother Yashoda is dressed. What were her movements like? How did her face look? How did her eyebrows look? How was her hair? And it says here that Mother Yashoda was dressed in a saffron yellow sari with a belt tied about her full hips. Mother Yashoda pulled on the churning rope, laboring considerably, which means this was not an easy task for her. Her bangles and earrings moving and vibrating, and her whole body shaking. Her face, with its very beautiful eyebrows, was wet with perspiration, and malati flowers were falling from her hair. So Shukadev Goswami is saying that Mother Yashoda was feeling such intense love for Lord Krishna that she was ready to feed the Lord her own milk. And Prabhupada again gives us some very sublime instructions in this particular purport. And I will read the entire purport. Actually, let me share my screen so you can see what Prabhupada has written here. Prabhupada writes, anyone who desires to be Krishna conscious in motherly affection or parental affection should contemplate the bodily features of Mother Yashoda. It is not that one should desire to become like Yashoda, for this is Mayavad. Either in parental affection or conjugal love, friendship or servitorship, in any way, we must follow in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, not try to become like them. Therefore, this description is provided here. Advanced devotees must cherish this description, always thinking of Mother Yashoda's features, how she was dressed, how she was working and perspiring, how beautifully the flowers were arranged in her hair, and so on. One should take advantage of the full description provided here by thinking of Mother Yashoda in maternal affection for Krishna. So Prabhupada is writing here that for those who are raganugas in terms of that bhava, they have to follow in the footsteps of the ragatmikas, the devotees who have spontaneous love for Krishna. And therefore, Prabhupada is advising, this is of course his advices for the advanced devotees, not for the Madhyamadhikaris. So for the advanced devotees, Srila Prabhupada is saying they should simply meditate on this particular description, especially if you have a desire to associate with Krishna as his parent, then you should meditate on this description provided by Shukadeva Goswami. So important for us to remember is we should follow, we should not imitate. And then in the next two shlokas, Shukadeva Goswami talks about how the Lord woke up. It was early in the morning. It was the day of Diwali. Mother Yashoda was thinking to herself of how and why does my child go to other houses to have butter? And Mother Yashoda, it is said, had many, many maidservants. And maidservants would do some of the kitchen chores for her. And she was thinking, is it because my son has tasted our butter and our yogurt and has really not enjoyed the taste? So today she decides on Diwali, I will make the best yogurt and I will churn that yogurt and make it into the best butter. And we will put a stop to Krishna going to other people's homes to steal their butter, because obviously the butter that I make is going to be so nectarian. Krishna is never going to want to step into another house to steal their butter. So thinking like this, Mother Yashoda has started in the kitchen very early in the morning during Brahma Muhurta time. Meanwhile, the Lord hears his mother singing. And there's another beautiful explanation that when the devotee is constantly thinking about the Lord and singing his praises, it attracts the Lord's attention. So he gets up from his yoga nidra to find out why is this devotee singing about him. And so the Lord appears. Mother Yashoda has put a pot of milk to boil in the kitchen, and she stepped into the room beside the kitchen. So she starts her churning of the yogurt in a pot. a pot that was given to her by her mother-in-law that has come down in the family of Nanda Maharaj. So it was considered to be a very precious pot, an heirloom, a heritage. So Mother Yashoda thought, let me use the best pot because I'm going to be making a lot of sweets and other things for my Lala. But Lord Krishna, his attention is drawn to the fact that Mother Yashoda is singing about him, singing about his pastimes. Of course, when a child wakes up, the child usually is hungry. So he also wanted to take her milk. So what does the Lord do? The Lord comes and puts his hand on the churning rod, preventing Mother Yashoda from doing any further churning. Because had he caught hold of her, that she would have continued to work. He was letting her know, I am more important than that churning rod. So your attention should shift towards me. So Mother Yashoda embraces Krishna and allows Lord Krishna to sit on her lap, and she begins to feed him. But shortly thereafter, the milk in the kitchen has overflowed and hit the fire. And when it makes that hissing noise, Mother Yashoda very quickly puts Krishna down and runs into the kitchen because she wants to save the milk. Because after all, the milk was meant for Krishna. Again, coming to this beautiful purport written by Prabhupada for this particular shloka, shloka number 5. A very sweet purport written by Prabhupada. Prabhupada writes, everything in the household affairs of Mother Yashoda was meant for Krishna. Although Krishna was drinking the breast milk of Mother Yashoda, when she saw that the milk pan in the kitchen was overflowing, she had to take care of it immediately, and thus she left her son, who then became very angry, not having been fully satisfied with drinking the milk of her breast. Sometimes one must take care of more than one item of important business for the same purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is to serve Krishna. So she was serving Krishna by feeding him her breast milk, but she was also serving Krishna by running and chasing after that milk that has overflowed in the pot. So Prabhupada is very sweetly saying, sometimes a devotee is going to face a tussle. Is this seva more important for Krishna, or is that seva more important for Krishna? Therefore, Mother Yashoda was not unjust when she left her son to take care of the overflowing milk. On the platform of love and affection, it is the duty of the devotee to do one thing first and other things later. So Prabhupada is giving very practical instructions based on this pastime of the Lord with his mother. He's telling you and me as devotees, when we have multiple seva opportunities in the temple, we should do one thing at a time. And furthermore, Prabhupada says, the proper intuition by which to do this is given by Krishna. So when we are confused, when we have so many sevas assigned to us, and we're wondering which seva should I prioritize, we should follow this simple instruction given by Prabhupada, which is we have to do one seva at a time. We have to prioritize. But how you prioritize which seva to do first, Srila Prabhupada is saying that is going to be given to you by Krishna himself. He will give it to you in the form of your intuition. Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayantite. This is the last shloka of the Chatushloke in the 10th chapter, which talks about the relationship between Bhagavan, the Bhakta, in the form of bhakti. In Krishna consciousness, everything is dynamic. So which means today, if you make a decision to prioritize, say, one particular seva, tomorrow you may have to reprioritize again, because when you're practicing Krishna consciousness, everything is dynamic. Nothing stays the same. Krishna guides the devotee in what to do first and what to do next on the platform of absolute truth. Such sublime instructions from an Acharya is coming in the purport of this particular shloka relating to Mother Yashoda, putting her son down in a hurry to chase the milk that is overflowing in the kitchen. But the deeper takeaway for us here in this particular purport written by Srila Prabhupada is that everything that Mother Yashoda was doing was meant for Krishna. There's not a thing that she did that was not meant for the Lord. This was her labor of love for Krishna, to put the Supreme Lord down and run after the milk. So in the next shloka, Shukadev Goswami describes. So now that Mother Yashoda has put him down, the Lord is very angry. So we'll read the shloka. Sanjata kopa spurita runadharam sandashya dadimanta bhajanam bhitva mrishashur drishad asmana raho jagha sahayyagavam antaram gataha. And Shukadev Goswami is giving such detailed description as to what is happening to the Lord, who has been very unceremoniously put on the floor, his feeding completely interrupted. He was not full at all. He was not satisfied, but his mother had put him down. Sanjata kopaha. In this way, Krishna becomes very angry. Spurita aruna adharam, swollen reddish lips. Sandashya, capturing, dadbihi, by his teeth. So what's he doing? He's biting his lips. And mrisha ashruhu, false tears. And Prabhupada very sweetly explains in this purport that children, when they are upset and they don't get their way, in the beginning, when they start crying, it is actually false tears. But pretty soon they've convinced themselves that they're so upset that tears start flowing. So Krishna begins in the same way, false tears in the eyes. So he's found a piece of stone and he's destroyed the heirloom pot with one shot. The yogurt flows all over the floor. He tastes the butter, doesn't think too highly of it because the butter is not fully formed, obviously. Actually, there is very little butter because Mother Yashoda has just started churning. So it's actually yogurt. He was looking for the butter and he doesn't find it. So then he gets upset and he goes in search. He knows where Mother Yashoda keeps the butter. So he heads to that room. Shukadev goes, the entire translation of the shloka is being very angry and biting his reddish lips with his teeth. Krishna, with false tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. Then he entered a room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. So this time, Our Lala has broken basic etiquette. And what has he done? He has broken the pot in his own house, and he's about to steal butter in his own house. Why? He's waiting to be chastised. So the Lord has stepped into the room where the butter is stored. And what has he done? He has climbed up on top of an ulukal, which is a mortar, a grinding mortar. It was placed upside down. So he's climbed on top of that mortar. He's reached up the pots that were stored up high. He started tasting the butter. He sees some monkeys outside the window. He invites them to taste the butter too. And Prabhupada also explains in the purport that apparently crows had also come in to taste the butter. And like this, Krishna has begun distributing the butter to the monkeys and coaxing them and encouraging them, have some more, you know. Oh, then the monkeys would start refusing. No, our bellies are full. We cannot have any more, Baba. You've given us enough. So Krishna was not happy to hear the monkeys also saying we are full, we cannot have any more. So he started throwing the butter around. And in the meantime, he knows it's not going to be too long before Mother Yashoda has discovered the crime scene of broken pot and yogurt all over the place. Sure enough, Mother Yashoda returns, and this is how Shukadev Goswami describes it. Mother Yashoda, after taking down the hot milk from the oven, returned to the churning pot. And when she saw that the container of yogurt was broken and that Krishna was not present, she concluded that the breaking of the pot was the work of Krishna. So all along, when the gopis complained to her, she actually doesn't believe them. She thinks they are just making up these cute stories, just so that they have an opportunity to come and complain to her about her son. Her son is supremely perfect. There is no flaw in her son. How could there be a flaw? It's her son. That's how Mother Yashoda thinks. But now, when she encounters this crime scene, it suddenly dawns on her that what the gopi is saying was perhaps true. This is what he's been doing in other houses. Stealing, making a mess, making babies cry, lying that he has not stolen the butter, telling some of the Gokulvasis that their butter was not good enough. It was not fit for consumption. So all of this Krishna was doing, but now it dawns on Mother Yashoda that, you know, maybe there is some truth to what the gopis were saying after all. And therefore, she sees these little baby footprints leading to the storeroom where the butter is stored. She picks up a stick in her hand. Very quietly, cautiously, without making any noise, she comes and approaches Krishna from the back. So meantime, Krishna is happily distributing all the yogurt. Every now and then he would look around because the Lord was experiencing anxiety. He knows he's going to get it this time. He knows what he has done. Mother Yashoda is not going to excuse him, because this time she has witnessed it herself. So he suspects, if Maya comes, she is going to chastise me. So every now and then he would look behind to see, has she come? Has she come? Has she come? She's not come. Just when he turns around, Mother Yashoda is right behind him. So some of the acharyas say, how did the Lord find out that his mother was right behind him? So here, of course, in this particular Leela, Shukadev Goswami says, this is in Shloka 9. Shukadev Goswami writes, when Lord Shri Krishna saw his mother, stick in hand, he very quickly got down from the top of the mortar and began to flee as if very much afraid. And then Shukadev Goswami continues. Because Shukadev Goswami has also entered the pastime. He's not able to help himself. He's not continuing to talk about the pastime. He takes a little break and talks about the astounding scene that is unfolding in front of his eyes as he's narrating this particular pastime to Parikshit Maharaj. So he has said, Krishna has got down and he has run. And for the next two shlokas, he's going to take a break. Actually, in this shloka itself, the next two sentences, he talks as follows. Although yogis try to capture him as Paramatma by meditation, desiring to enter into the effulgence of the Lord, with great austerities and penances, they fail to reach him. But Mother Yashoda, thinking that same personality of Godhead Krishna to be her son, began following Krishna to catch him. So Shukadev Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, this is the Supreme Lord. The yogis try to capture him as Paramatma through their meditation. And the jnanis try to enter the effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti of the Lord by performing a great deal of penances and austerities. And still, both these categories, both the jnanis and the yogis fail. They fail to catch the Lord. They are performing such great austerities and yet their result is nil. And in the next sentence, Shukadev Goswami is saying, but Mother Yashoda, thinking that same personality of Godhead Krishna to be her son, began following Krishna to catch him. So he's giving a hint to Parikshit Maharaj. This is the stature of the devotees. Great yogis cannot catch him. Great jnanis cannot catch him. But who's about to catch him? The bhakta is about to catch him. Mother Yashoda is an eternal associate of the Lord. So she is eternally playing the role of his son in Goloka Vrindavan. And therefore Shukadev Goswami is hinting to Parikshit Maharaj that the Lord is about to be caught. So the scene is that, and actually I'll read the little bit of the purport that Prabhupada has written here. Yogis, mystics want to catch Krishna as Paramatma, and with great austerities and penances, they try to approach him, yet they cannot. Here we see, however, that Krishna is going to be caught by Yashoda and is running away in fear. And Prabhupada writes, this illustrates the difference between the bhakta and the yogi. Yogis cannot reach Krishna. But for pure devotees like Mother Yashoda, Krishna is already caught. Krishna was even afraid of Mother Yashoda's stick. This was mentioned by Queen Kunti in her prayers. Bhaya bhavanaya stitasya. Actually, this is from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, where Queen Kunti's prayers to Lord Krishna that she offers when Krishna is ready to leave Kurukshetra after period of staying with them for a few months after the war is over. At that time, Queen Kunti Devi begs the Lord not to leave her. So Kunti has also witnessed this pastime. And she explains to the Lord, we cannot comprehend you. Why were you running away in fear? You are the Supreme Lord, but yet you are exhibiting real fear. Krishna is afraid of Mother Yashoda, and yogis are afraid of Krishna. Prabhupada is writing. Krishna is afraid of Mother Yashoda, and yogis are afraid of Krishna. So yogis try to reach Krishna by Jnana Yoga and other yogas, but fail. Yet, although Mother Yashoda was a woman, Krishna was afraid of her, as clearly described in this verse. So Krishna has taken off running. So now what is happening? So Shukadeva Goswami comes back to the scene to describe what is unfolding. So what's happening? Krishna is running in a zigzag pattern. He knows that Mother Yashoda is an elderly lady. On top of that, she is a little overweight. He knows that she cannot catch him, or so he thinks. So he observes that Mother Yashoda is not able to keep pace with him, and therefore she reduces her speed. In the process, Shukadeva Goswami is describing the condition of Mother Yashoda. Because she was trying to run after him with great speed to catch him, her hair became loose. And Shukadeva Goswami says, and the flowers in her hair were falling after her. And there are some beautiful commentaries on this particular aspect of the flowers falling after Mother Yashoda, saying, don't leave us behind. We want to capture the Lord too. But she was saying, no, I'm in a bit of a hurry. So therefore, the flowers were falling behind her, saying, it's our bad luck that we were not able to catch the Lord along with you because you are chasing him. Yet, Shukadeva Goswami says, she did not fail to capture her son, Krishna. So this is the scene. She has not yet caught Krishna. But Shukadeva Goswami is already telling Parikshit Maharaj, she did not fail to capture her son. She's running after him all right. She slowed down her speed all right. Krishna is trying to trick her by doing zigzag motion, knowing that she will not be able to turn as fast. Heavy vehicles have a hard time, have to make a slow turn on the curves. So Krishna was very cleverly doing a zigzag pattern, knowing that Mother Yashoda is going to have a little bit of difficulty catching him. But Shukadeva Goswami is saying, as if to reveal the climax, oh yes, she is going to be caught. Rather, Damodara is going to be caught pretty soon. So this is the scene that is unfolding. And here again, Prabhupada repeats the fact that jnanis and yogis do all kinds of things to get the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada writes, I'm not reading the whole purport, just a portion of it. In that effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti, there are millions of universes, but yogis and jnanis cannot enter that effulgence even after many, many years of austerities, whereas bhaktas can capture Krishna simply by love and affection. Bhaktas can capture Krishna simply by love and affection. This is the example shown here by Mother Yashoda. Krishna therefore confirms that if one wants to capture him, one must undertake devotional service. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschashmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. This is the 55th shloka in the very last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada writes, Bhaktas enter even the planet of Krishna very easily. But the less intelligent yogis and jnanis by their meditation remain running after Krishna. Even if they enter Krishna's effulgence, they fall down. So Prabhupada is emphasizing, and Shukadev Goswami is emphasizing, all it takes to capture the Lord is one's own love and affection for the Supreme Lord. That was being demonstrated here in this particular pastime. In the next shloka, which is shloka 11, Shukadev Goswami is giving a detailed description of what this Nandalala is doing. He's being chased by his mother. He's still not caught. But in the meantime, what is he doing? Krita Agasam, this offender, this criminal called Krishna, Prarudantam. Oh, he was crying. Now he was crying copiously. Earlier it was false tears. Now he's really crying. Akshini, his two eyes. Kashantam, he was rubbing his two eyes. Anjat Mashini. So Mother Yashoda had applied kajal to his eyes every day. And what was the Lord doing? With his two hands, he was rubbing his eyes, and all the kajal was distributed all over his face and mingling with the tears that were running down his eyes. And when he sees the stick raised in Mother Yashoda's hands, what is the Lord displaying? Whose eyes appeared distressed because of such fear of his mother. He was really frightened to see this form of his mother. She was threatening him. She was threatening to beat him. And how does Mother Yashoda respond to the fear that she sees in her Lala's eyes? She very mildly chastises him. So she's not able to really use the stick. Seeing the fear in his eyes, she catches hold of the Lord and scolds him. When caught by Mother Yashoda, Krishna became more and more afraid and admitted to being an offender. So he was confessing his crimes. You know, there is voluntary confession and involuntary confession. Voluntary confession happens when you want to avoid a harsher punishment. Involuntary confession happens under duress, which means you are under stress. And because you're so stressed, you end up confessing your crime. So Krishna was under duress here. Simply seeing the stick in his mother's hand, he confesses. So involuntary confession out of fear. As she looked upon him, she saw that he was crying, his tears mixing with the black ointment around his eyes. And as he rubbed his eyes with his hands, he smeared the ointment all over his face. Mother Yashoda, catching her beautiful son by the hand, mildly began to chastise him. So the Lord decides it's not really worth running anymore. This lady seems to be quite serious. She could cause me serious harm. Before she causes me any harm, better I confess and try to save my skin. So that's what the Lord does. He confesses his crimes. He said, yes, I'm the one who broke the pot. I'm the one who made the mess. I'm the one who distributed the butter to all the monkeys. And I'm the one who's disturbing your peace of mind. So Prabhupada writes in this purport, from these dealings between Mother Yashoda and Krishna, we can understand the exalted position of a pure devotee in loving service to the Lord. Prabhupada writes, great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva always worship the Lord by meditation and by service. Even the most powerful Yamaraj fears Krishna. Therefore, as we find in the history of Ajamil, Yamaraj instructed his followers not even to approach the devotees or to speak of capturing them. In other words, Yamaraj also fears Krishna and Krishna's devotees. What is Prabhupada writing? In other words, Yamaraj also fears Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Yet this Krishna became so dependent on Mother Yashoda that when she simply showed Krishna the stick in her hand, Krishna admitted to being an offender and began to cry like an ordinary child. Mother Yashoda, of course, did not want to chastise her beloved child very much because Mother Yashoda was worried. This Krishna is so restless. She has observed that he never stays still. He doesn't walk straight. He doesn't talk straight. He seems to talk in code. So she was afraid because her Lala was so restless that if she was too strict with him, he would simply run away from home and never come back. So Prabhupada writes here, Mother Yashoda, of course, did not want to chastise her beloved child very much. And therefore, she immediately threw her stick away and simply rebuked Krishna, saying, now I shall bind you so that you cannot commit any further offensive activities. Nor for the time being can you play with your playmates. So Krishna was put in a timeout. Oh, what kind of timeout? He was literally bound to the mortar on which he had actually climbed to perform this criminal act. So Prabhupada again emphasizes, this is the position of a pure devotee of the Lord. They can do anything to the Lord. The medium through which they accomplish this is through bhakti. So I was telling in a class earlier today, if you read the Chatushloke of the Bhagavad Gita, which is shlokas 8, 9, 10, 11 of chapter 10. Although in common parlance we say the bhaktas can dominate the Supreme Lord, actually the medium by which they do it is through bhakti. So between the bhaktas and Bhagavan, their relationship is in the form of bhakti. And therefore, bhakti is superior to Bhagavan himself. And because bhakti is being performed by the bhakta himself is able to conquer the Lord very easily through the medium of bhakti. So now Mother Yashoda, although she is feeling intense love for the Lord, she does not know he is the Supreme Lord. And Shukadev Goswami says she did not care also. If somebody told her this was a Supreme Lord, she would have rejected it. So desiring to bind him, to stop his naughty activities, she tells Krishna, stand here. I'm going to go get some ropes. And Krishna very obediently stands, waiting for his mother to come back with the ropes to tie him up to the ulukal as a warning that I will not tolerate any more of your naughtiness or your mischievous activities. The Acharyas also write, Mother Yashoda was thinking, if I don't chastise you now, you are going to grow up with all kinds of bad qualities. And if you grow up with bad qualities, who will I get you married to? Who will even want to marry you? So this is how Mother Yashoda was thinking. Who will marry you if you're so incorrigible? You're incorrigible now. I can hardly believe what you would be as a grown-up. So she decides, Once and for all, she has to teach him. So she brings the ropes, and again Shukadev Goswami takes a break from describing the scene, and in shloka 13 and 14, Shukadev Goswami is actually taking a break to glorify the Lord. So we'll just read, it's a little lengthy shloka, but we'll just read the translation of the shloka. So Shukadev Goswami has said, Mother Yashoda, seeing the fear in her son's eyes, has dropped the stick, and she's gone to get ropes to bind him. So in the meantime, Shukadev Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him, there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times, being absolute, being beyond relativity. He is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person, who's beyond the perception of the senses, had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. So even before Mother Yashoda is actually successful in binding the Lord, Shukadev Goswami has already told Parikshit Maharaj she is going to bind him. Although she has not yet bound him, she experiences some difficulties binding the Lord. But he's revealed the climax already. He's telling Parikshit Maharaj, the Lord has been caught and now he's going to be bound. So again, the purport is a very beautiful purport. I would request you all to please read the purports of these shlokas. If we get into all of the purports, it's going to take us a few hours to finish. Prabhupada says in the following purports, including this purport, although Mother Yashoda has not bound him yet, she's trying. She's going to try. The Lord is not going to cooperate that easily. But Prabhupada explains that you cannot tie the Lord unless he consents. So no matter how much you may try to bind the Lord with your love and affection, unless the Lord accepts your love and affection, you cannot bind him. So which means even in bhakti, although Lord Krishna says bhakti is easy to practice and bhakti pleases him most because there is actually a relationship with the Supreme Lord. The yogis and jnanis do not have this kind of relationship with the Lord. So Prabhupada asks a rhetorical question in this purport. The Lord cannot be measured. How then did Yashoda want to measure him and bind him? Prabhupada asks. The Lord is beyond our conceptions. How was Mother Yashoda able to measure him and bind him? And Prabhupada answers this question in the very next sentence where he says, we must conclude that this took place simply on the platform of pure transcendental love. This was the only cause. Devotees, and Prabhupada actually cites the Brahma Samhita, shloka number 33 from the Brahma Samhita. Advaitam achyutam anadim ananta rupam adyam purana purusham navayauvanam cha vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhaktau govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Prabhupada actually translates this particular shloka in the Brahma Samhita Everything is one because Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. Krishna cannot be measured or calculated by Vedic knowledge. Vedeshu durlabam. He is available only to devotees. Adurlabam atma bhaktau. Devotees can handle him because they act on the basis of loving service. Bhaktya mama vijanati. Thus, Mother Yashoda wanted to bind him. She wanted to bind him. She has not bound him yet. So Mother Yashoda comes back with a rope, but she tries to tie Krishna, and it was always 2 fingers width short. She was puzzled. This tiny little boy. She's not able to bind him. She thought she had brought enough of a length of a rope, but it always felt 2 fingers width short. So she goes back inside the house to bring some more rope. And she does this again and again and again and again. And it is always falling 2 fingers width short. She's not able to tie the Lord. And Prabhupada explained, this is the Lord's unlimited potency. When she tried to bind him, the rope was too short. The Lord has already shown his unlimited potency by killing Putana, Shakatashur, and Trinavarta. Now Krishna exhibited another vibhuti or display of potency to Mother Yashoda. And Prabhupada writes, unless I agree, meaning Krishna, Krishna desired to show, you cannot bind me. Thus, although Mother Yashoda, in her attempt to bind Krishna, added 1 rope after another, ultimately, she was a failure. When Krishna agreed, however, she was successful. In other words, one must be in transcendental love with Krishna, but that does not mean that one can control Krishna. When Krishna is satisfied with one's devotional service, he does everything himself. So Prabhupada is explaining, if Krishna is satisfied with your bhakti, then he will consent to whatever it is that you want to do with him. And Prabhupada writes, he reveals more and more to the devotee as the devotee advances in service. This service begins with the tongue, with chanting and with taking prasad of Krishna. And Prabhupada quotes a shloka from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the nectar of devotion. So Yashoda is not successful in binding Krishna. Meantime, the other gopis had come. They knew something was happening because they had heard Krishna cry. They could hear the commotion. So they come to observe. Some of the gopis are enjoying the scene. They like the fact that Krishna is in trouble. They like the fact that Mother Yashoda is trying to chase him and bind him. And some of them decide to help. They bring ropes and hand it over to Mother Yashoda. Yes, tie your child up. It's about high time you did that. So they bring ropes, and no matter how long the rope is always 2 fingers width short. So now Mother Yashoda is exhausted. And how long can she continue to do this? And all of the other gopis were making fun because they could tell, they were amazed that this child is so mischievous. Even punishing him is a big difficulty. It's not easy to punish him. So Prabhupada again writes a beautiful purport. Actually, this incident was wonderful because Krishna was only a child with small hands. To bind him should have required only a rope not more than 2 feet long. Prabhupada is saying, You only needed 2 feet long rope to bind the Lord. All the ropes in the house combined together might have been hundreds of feet long, but still he was impossible to bind, for all the ropes together were still too short. Naturally, Mother Yashoda and her gopi friends thought, how is this possible? The first rope was short by a measurement, the width of 2 fingers. And after the second rope was added, it was still 2 fingers too short. If the shortness of all the ropes were added together, it must have amounted to the width of hundreds of fingers. That's how much rope they were trying to use. Mother Yashoda was trying to use to bind the Lord. Just if you measure the shortness itself, that itself would have amounted to significant rope. Certainly, this was astonishing. So Krishna was bewildering the gopis through his vibhuti potency. And so now Krishna is observing, Mother Yashoda is becoming very tired. She's completely covered in sweat. The flowers have completely disappeared from her hair. Her comb has fallen off somewhere. And when the child, Shukadev Goswami writes, because of Mother Yashoda's hard labor, her whole body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and the comb were falling from her hair. When child Krishna saw his mother thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. So the Lord thought, okay, I've troubled my mother enough. She looks really tired. I don't know what's going to happen. Let me just give in. So when he agrees to be bound because of his mercy on his mother, then he was bound finally. And so Prabhupada writes in this particular purport, when Mother Yashoda and the other ladies finally saw that Krishna, although decorated with many bangles and other jeweled ornaments, could not be bound with all the ropes available in the house, they decided that Krishna was so fortunate that he could not be bound by any material condition. Thus, they gave up the idea of binding him. So Mother Yashoda got so exhausted. The other gopis witnessing the scene got so exhausted. They decided, let's let it be. Let's not bind him because they were giving up. And then Prabhupada writes a very sweet statement. He says, but in the competition between Krishna and his devotee, Krishna sometimes agrees to be defeated. So sometimes there is a competition between the devotee and the Lord. And sometimes the Lord agrees to be defeated. Thus, Krishna's internal energy, Yoga Maya, was brought to work, and Krishna agreed to be bound by Mother Yashoda. And in the next shloka, which is shloka 19, again, Shukadev Goswami takes a break to describe the supremacy of the Lord. He says, O Maharaj Parikshit, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. And Shukadev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, this was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. So Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, the only way to conquer the Lord, provided he consents, is to perform devotional service. And Prabhupada writes, actually, this pastime is not very easy to understand. How can anybody bind the Supreme Lord? Well, only by his own mercy. Nobody else can bind him. Therefore, this contradiction of him being the Supreme Lord and yet being bound by a Jivatma is so hard to comprehend. So the master comes under the control of the servant because of the servant's love for the master. And Prabhupada writes in this purport, in Bhagavad Gita 1.21, it is said that Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. Arjuna ordered him, Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapaya Mechata. My dear Krishna, you've agreed to be my charioteer and to execute my orders. Place my chariot between the two armies of soldiers. And Prabhupada writes, Krishna immediately executed this order. Arjuna said, do this. And what did Krishna said? Yes, sir, I will do it right away. Krishna immediately executed this order, and therefore one may argue that Krishna is also not independent. And the very next sentence, Prabhupada says, but this is one's ajnana, ignorance. Krishna is always fully independent. When he becomes subordinate to his devotees, this is a display of his Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, the humor of transcendental qualities that increases his transcendental pleasure. Everyone worships Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he sometimes desires to be controlled by someone else. Because everybody is venerating the Lord thinks, hey, everybody is always worshipping me. I want them to forget that I am the worshipable Lord. So he has to put his own devotee in such a situation that they forget he is the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he comes under their control. So he sometimes desires to be controlled by someone else. Such a controller can be no one else but a pure devotee. So the Lord has consented to be bound and is finally bound by his mother. After many unsuccessful attempts, the Lord, feeling very merciful towards his mother, decides to let go. So here, immediately thereafter, Shukadev Goswami describes how Mother Yashoda ties up the Lord and she goes back into the house to perform her other duties. It was Diwali and she was expecting guests. And at that time, the Lord is in the courtyard and he begins to crawl with the mortar behind him. And he sees two trees. And immediately he thinks of Narada Muni's instruction. And he wants to execute another order of Narada Muni. Just like he executed Arjuna's order, take my chariot in between the two armies. The Lord was thinking about a statement made by Narada Muni that has impacted the two trees in his courtyard, in Nanda Maharaj's courtyard. And Shukadev Goswami ends this chapter 9 by saying, these two sons, known as Nalakuvara and Manigriva, were extremely opulent and fortunate. But because of pride and false prestige, they did not care about anyone. And thus, Narada Muni cursed them to become trees. So this ends chapter 9 of Canto 10. In the next chapter, chapter 10 of Canto 10, this particular chapter is titled The Deliverance of the Yamala Arjuna Trees. So this particular chapter begins with Parikshit Maharaj asking a question. So Shukadev Goswami has very briefly said, the Lord has spotted those two trees. He remembers Narada Muni's curse on these two trees. And by the way, these two trees, this is their real identity. They are the two sons of Kuvera, the treasurer. of the demigods. So hearing this, Parikshit Maharaj's curiosity is piqued. So he asks Shukdev Goswami, O great and powerful saint, what was the cause of Nalakuvara's and Manigriva's having been cursed by Narada Muni? What did they do that was so abominable that even Narada, the great sage, became angry at them? Kindly describe this to me. So Parikshit Maharaj has asked a question of Shukadev Goswami, specifically, how did a great saint like Narada Muni, who is not known to get angry, how did he get angry and curse these two personalities? What happened? How do they come to this state? So in response to this particular question, this entire chapter proceeds where Shukadev Goswami talks about what these two personalities had done, how they had violated some basic human decency, that too in Swargaloka, where they were frolicking with other women naked in a river. And which river? The Ganges that runs in Swargaloka is called Mandakini. They were in the river committing offenses. And Narada Muni happens to be passing by. And because of their pride and conceit and their intoxication, they don't recognize Narada Muni. They are in a naked condition. They are in an intoxicated condition. So while the two young, or rather the young ladies that were with them, immediately cover themselves up when they see the sage has come, these two personalities do not. And Narada Muni, Prabhupada writes in the purports that Narada Muni comes to plant the seed of bhakti, even to the most intoxicated of the jivatmas. And Prabhupada writes that saintly persons know how to bestow mercy upon the fallen souls. So what was externally looking like a curse, where he curses them to become mere trees. Trees are considered to be naked. They don't wear clothes. And because they were enjoying their nakedness, this was a fitting punishment. So Prabhupada writes elsewhere that those who like being naked are going to have to take birth in their next life as trees. So Narada Muni, in the form of a curse, has actually given them a benediction. The benediction of becoming trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, where they had been standing for 100 celestial years, waiting for the Lord to come and perform his pastime. So all along, these two trees have so far witnessed the Lord's Balya Leela pastimes, standing there. So when the Lord sees the two trees, he remembers Narada Muni's curse, where he has told these two personalities, you have to take the body of the trees for your violation of basic etiquette. But one day the Lord will come and release you from this curse. And so Lord Krishna was thinking about Narada Muni. He was not thinking of Nalakuvara and Manigriva. He was thinking about his pure devotee having made the statement. And now anything that the devotee of the Lord says must come true. So if the devotee says something, it has to come true. And the Lord makes sure it will come true. That's the beauty of the relationship between the devotee of the Lord and the Lord himself. So to keep it short, Lord Krishna goes in between the two trees and fells the two trees down. And in the process, the two personalities emerge from the tree and they offer their glorifications of the Supreme Lord. They recognize the Lord and call him Krishna, Krishna. They begin their shloka with, O Krishna, O Krishna. They recognize the Lord immediately. Again, that's the benediction of Narada Muni, where through this particular pastime where the Lord goes in between the two trees, they get back their original memory immediately. So in between, there are a lot of shlokas where Narada Muni is talking philosophy to these two personalities before he actually curses them. So you can read some wonderful purports written by Srila Prabhupada in this chapter as well. So Narada Muni curses them and he has left, and now Krishna has released them. And Krishna is thinking as he is going between the trees. Krishna is saying, although these two young men are the sons of the very rich Kuvera, and I have nothing to do with them, Devarshi Narada is my very dear and affectionate devotee, and therefore, because he wanted me to come face to face with them, I must do so for their deliverance. So the Lord is not very pleased with these two personalities, and that's why he's bestowing his mercy on them. No. Narada Muni wanted the Lord to bestow his mercy on these two fallen personalities, and therefore the Lord fulfills the desire of his devotee. We always say in ISKCON, and actually even Prabhupada writes in this purport, if we want to receive the mercy of the Lord, we should beg the mercy of his devotees first. If we don't have the mercy of fellow Vaishnavas, there is no way you're going to get the mercy of the Lord. The Lord does not agree to be conquered directly. You need to first learn how to serve his devotees, and only then the Lord consents. Just like as he shows in this particular pastime. It was the desire of Narada Muni that he has planted that seed of bhakti, but that bhakti will only fructify when the Lord fulfills Narada Muni's desire. And the Lord does fulfill Narada Muni's desire. So when you read the prayers of these two personalities as they are offering it to the Lord, they ask the Lord for a benediction. They ask for forgiveness for what they've done. And then they also tell the Lord, if at all you have to bless us, please bless us so that we may always remember you. We may always think about you. We may always talk about you. And Prabhupada writes beautifully in the purport, this is a pure, perfect instruction for what a devotee should be doing in life. Exactly what Nalakuvara and Manigriva were asking from the Lord. And I will just read that particular shloka. This is shloka 38 of chapter 10. Nalakuvara and Manigriva are saying as follows, henceforward, may all our words describe your pastimes. May our ears engage in oral reception of your glories. May our hands, legs, and other senses engage in actions pleasing to you. And may our minds always think of your lotus feet. May our heads offer our obeisances to everything within this world, because all things are also your different forms. And may our eyes see the forms of Vaishnavas who are non-different from you. So these two personalities are telling the Lord, please let us also bow down to all of your devotees, because your devotees are not different from you, my dear Lord. So the Lord says, okay. The Lord was very pleased with their prayers that they made, although he was not pleased with them earlier. But once they have offered this prayer, he becomes so pleased. And he says, yes, okay, fine. And this particular chapter ends with the Lord saying, O Nalakuvara and Manigriva, now you may both return home. Since you desire to always be absorbed in my devotional service, your desire to develop love and affection for me will be fulfilled. And now you will never fall from that platform. So again, the Lord is saying, once you become his devotee, you will not fall. You will not forget him. So this way, the personalities circumambulated the Lord, and they took the Lord's permission, and they returned to their respective homes. The 11th chapter talks a little bit more about some of the childhood pastimes of the Lord, but it ends with Upananda, who's one of the senior cowherd men and the older brother of Nanda Maharaj. He tells them, we've been in Gokul for some time and we have observed all these disturbances. For whatever reason, we are always in distress. Something or the other is happening to Krishna. Something and the other is always attacking Krishna. So why don't we all pack up our bags and move to a place called Vrindavan? And immediately all the cowherd men agree to this proposition. Very quickly, they pack up their bags and they move to the place called Vrindavan. But do you think the demons have stopped appearing? No. Even in Vrindavan, the Lord is visited. He has a constant stream of Asuras visiting him. So the future chapters are going to talk about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord in Vrindavan. We will conclude our session here today. And with the felling of the two trees, Srila Prabhupada writes, this is the Damodara Leela. So chapters 9 and 10 constitute the Damodara Leela of the pastime where the mother binds the Supreme Lord, yes, with ropes, but more so with her love, her intense love for the Lord, who she never thought was the Lord. She only thought, he's my child, he's an ordinary child, and I need to teach him some basic manners. So with that, the Lord is bound and he's untied later on by Nanda Maharaj. So the one parent ties him up, another parent unties him. And therefore the Lord becomes free again to do other mischief now, but no more stealing of butter. It moves on to other territory. So more demons to come. And then the pastime of the Lord bewildering Lord Brahma, the Lord stealing the clothes of the gopis, the rasa dance are all subsequent chapters that come. We'll stop our class here today. Vancha kalpadarupyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnava vrindi ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.